Good morning. It's far too early, or in this instance, it's the right early of the morning, but I'm too tired because last night we had Friday Night Smite. I stayed up way too late with the boys playing Destiny and shooting aliens in the face. So I got a solid 5 at the most hours of sleep to wake up and drive to an event this morning. So as I sit in a parking lot, waiting to go get some Starbucks, I thought I'd record and talk to you fine folks and get the third episode this week out. Welcome to the Unwashed Asses. My name's Christian. This is episode 122, recorded for Saturday, August. Come on, where's my date? Where's my date? Come on, Fitbit. August 17th, 2019. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm really, really tired. Alrighty, so what are we going to talk about today? Music's what we're going to talk about. I've been sampling a new band, and by sampling I mean consuming their entire collected works and watching multiple videos and live shows on YouTube, and essentially just gorging myself on their music. And how I came about it was in a very odd fashion. So lately when I'm playing games, I've been turning off the music in said game and then lowering the actual game volume down really, really low to the point where I can barely hear it. Because at this point, games like Destiny, it's the same thing over and over again. You're just playing the same content. Your brain's kind of on autopilot, and you're looking for something a little more engaging to listen to while you play. Usually that's podcasts for me, but lately I've been turning more towards music, which is kind of common, where I'll alternate back and forth, where I'll almost exclusively listen to podcasts, or I'll find an album I really, really enjoy and just play it to death. The last one was Love Crush by AFI, where for a solid 3 or 4 months that was all I listened to. So part of that while playing games is, you have a 2-monitor setup, and so I'll have my game on one monitor, and on the other I'll have something else usually going, like email or Discord. But for the past several months I've taken to just playing like YouTube videos, and a big favorite of mine was finding like the Rock Band playlist, because as anybody who's played either Guitar Hero or Rock Band know, it's got a fairly good curated list of music, especially if there's stuff that's like up your alley, and there's plenty of people who have done just that. They've taken the official videos or videos other people have made for those songs and then put them into essentially a set list where you can play through and listen. And that kind of got me down this rabbit hole of watching old music videos, like how the MTV used to do. And as I was kind of going through and watching videos, I'm like, you know what? This is a perfect opportunity for me to branch out and explore a little bit. And one of those bands that I had never really listened to, but had always seen, because I was very much into like the punk and pop punk scene when I was in high school, college, was the Misfits. And I'd always, not necessarily avoided, but not actively sought out their music, just because I thought, all right, they're a bunch of big muscle-bound guys who probably play very hard punk or close to metal music, themed on, spooky stuff, which in hindsight, I'm like, well, dumbass, that's kind of right up your fucking alley. Why aren't you listening to that? But I was intimidated by it, essentially. Same thing with, like Black Flag. Like, oh, it's too hard for me, where at the time I was really into like Blink-182 and Green Day, the more bubblegum punk. So I kind of avoided it, thinking it wasn't going to be my jam. And I guess that is a failing of mine, thinking I have a very niche taste in music, where like I only like a few things. And I base that largely on the fact that I don't like listening to like top 40 or rap or hip hop or any of that. So it's like, oh, you don't like a lot of music. No, I just don't like certain kinds of music, but I'm pretty open to a lot of other things. So the Misfits, it was a big long I digress there. Fell into that category where, like, all right, well, fuck it. It's however late at night. Let's put on one of their videos, and I ended up really enjoying it. Like, liked it quite a lot. I can't remember what song it was. It came out in the late 90s. But they had their whole, Groovy Ghoulie, Svengoolie, Elvira, Mistress of the Dark shtick. Like, where they've got, the skull paint on. And the other thing with the Misfits is they're pretty much fucking bodybuilders. So there's these big muscly dudes playing their instruments with skulls affixed to the guitars and having a good time. And I'm like, okay, that was a lot better than I was expecting it to, and that got me, I'm very much a seize the opportunity type of mood at the time, where it's like, all right, well, that's one band I've never listened to. What's another band I've never listened to? I'm feeling risky. Let's broaden my horizons. And so, Ghost was the next one that popped up in my mind, because I've been seeing a lot of them on like Imgur and Reddit over the past few years, and never really got around to it because they were always advertised as a metal band. And traditionally I'm not super into metal, just because while I like harder music, I don't like, screeching or screaming vocals and like the double bass pedal on a drum, where it's a wall of sound that embodies more emotion than actual nuance. And as I say that, bear in mind, I understand that many metal musicians are extremely talented in what they do. It's just the overall sound that they produce isn't pleasant to my ears. So I had avoided, seeking out Ghosts, but I liked their shtick as far as what I saw with, they seem to be a very theatrical group, and had very spooky atmospheric appearances. And I'm like, all right, well, you know what, fuck it, we'll give it a whirl. And as luck would have it, they had released an album recently, 2018 prequel, and had several music videos up. So I listened to Dance Macabre, which, in all fairness, is a very poppy rock song, almost akin to like a very mainstream friendly version of like 80s rock. There's a lot of tambourines and keyboarding going on, and it, while it had a nice edge to it, it seemed to be very safe in what it was, and wasn't at all what I was expecting from a metal band. And especially the music video, where it starts off with two guys stumbling through Transylvania, going to a party where a very gaunt, haunted-looking visage greets them at the door, and they're looking for a party. And he says there is no party, but oh yes, there is a party, and it's just full of very posh-looking goths and girls wearing plague masks that then end up dancing in spandex before a goat man pops up, and they're all bathing in blood. And shocking, it's an 80s horror movie where they're all vampires, and they feed on one of the guys that popped up while recruiting the other to their ranks. The theatrics and the music, it all kind of came together very well, and I'm like, all right, you've sold me a bit here. I'm in. What else you got? So then one of the suggested videos was a live show that somebody had recorded, particularly the dueling guitar intro for Cerise, which was off of their third album, Meliora. And live shows, whenever they play this song, they have their two guitarists, the lead and then the rhythm, go off into essentially like dueling pianos or dueling banjos, but it's a dueling guitar setup where they stand on either side of the screen and they'll stage, and they'll alternate back and forth and try to outplay one another. Now, once you watch a lot of these shows, you realize it's very scripted, and they actually appear to change the dueling guitar section from tour to tour, at least during the live shows and tours for the third album, Meliora. They did a very simplistic, it wasn't even very good dueling guitar set that ended up with a riff of the banjo scene from was it Deliverance? I think so. And anywho, and with the tours going nowadays, it ends with a little failed riff of Stairway into Heaven before kicking into the main song, Cerise itself. And that, combined with the getup of the musicians, who are referred to as the Nameless Ghouls, then with the over-the-top theatrics of what appears to be an ancient church and a tiered stage setup, and then the main character, frontman of Cardinal Copia, coming out and delivering a very passionate performance as he walks around the stage and then touts the performances of the other musicians, the Nameless Ghouls, as they get into their own solos or respective pieces. It won me over completely. I was hooked at that point. Like the imagery of these very sharply dressed ghouls with their silver face masks obscuring every one of their features, and then the almost over decadence of the Cardinal Copia character with at the time I didn't realize he's wearing a mask. Like the band is based very heavily in anonymity, where you don't know who the musicians themselves are. Up until 2017, we had no idea who the front man was until a lawsuit came about by former members saying, "Oh, you withheld financial information from us. There's money that's owed," and it was revealed, no, but you're essentially salaried musicians. I pay you to put on a show and perform the pieces I want you to, and that's what you do. And the overall aesthetic, though, that comes from that is that you have largely one man, in this case, I'm gonna blank on his last name, and it's gonna piss me off here. And I just erased my history. It's Tobias Forge. There we go. Who had formed the band back in 2006, but they didn't actually put out their debut album until 2010. But he's the centerpiece. He's the man who, with the help of some friends, put together this pageantry, and that's exactly what initially drew me in, was this pageantry, this sense of theatrics of a band performing. And it's just that, it's a performance, where most bands and groups that you go to see do live shows nowadays, or even their own music videos, it's them wearing street clothes. There's no real sense of performance. You have the music, yes, but there's nothing behind it. Bands like, it really harkens back to like Alice Cooper and Kiss, where they would wear outfits and they put on essentially a mini show within the show. Even to an extent like Daft Punk, where it's the similar concept of, we're going to remain anonymous to separate the person from the music. So that way the audience that's listening is able to engage more entirely with the music itself, rather than being hooked onto the personalities. And that's where a lot of music has gone nowadays, is that we're just hooked more so to the personality than to the music behind them. Where would we care as much about the artist if we divorce their image or who they are from the music? Would the music itself stand on its own? The example I think of, is like Beethoven, Mozart, Bach. You ask a general person, they have no idea what they looked like. They're going to say, generic middle-aged white guy, white powdered wig. But we don't remember much about the person, but their music stands the test of time. So, similar concept too. Again, this is very generalized similarity basing here. Bands like Kiss and Daft Punk and now Ghost, where it's not the person that we're interested in, it's more the music and the act itself, the play. And it was funny when I've been looking into them more. It's like, oh yeah, Tobias Forge has been compared to the Andrew Lloyd Webber of metal, and I guess I can see that in the sense that, oh yeah, he's putting on a show each and every time they go and perform, which is fascinating to me and was the big driving force in like, okay, I'm really now interested in this band, which I think I've rambled on about for 5 minutes just on that one point. But what then got me was, aside from the performance and the theatrics, was then the music. It wasn't at all what I was expecting as far as, metal. I could clearly understand what he was saying. His voice moves through ranges, but he doesn't have a whole lot of range. It's very clear as far as what they're saying. While there are harder songs and edgier bits, for the most part it follows standard rock. But as I dug deeper, I noticed that they, like many bands, have changed their sound over the years, and I had started at where they are now and started working my way into the past. So with Prequel, it's a very, I guess, more mainstream friendly, poppier, I hate to say poppier, I guess more just generic rock and roll sound compared to some of their previous works, like even more the third album, Meliora, I don't know, it's too early, has more of that edge and that hard rock, more doom metal sound to it, where yes, the guitar riffs are harder, the drum pounds a little bit more, there's a more concrete, solid bass line driving things through, and the vocal performance is definitely a lot, I keep saying hard and edgier, but I'm looking for different adjectives here. It's definitely geared differently, and this trend continues as you work your way backwards through the catalog to albums like their second one, Infinitesimum, and then their debut album, Opus Eponymous, where you can see their roots clearly began into more of the doom metal, hard metal, where yes, you have more of that bass pedal on the drums, the guitar riffs are very heavy and overpower the other instruments. There is keyboard work, but it stands to accent the rest of the music work, and the lyrics are very much focused on Satan. That leads us to the other big point with Ghost here. So Ghosts themselves were formed in Sweden. Sweden and most of the Nordic countries up there really love their metal, and a lot of the metal is influenced and based on Satan. Death metal is a stereotype for that area, to the point where you think of it, you think of guys with the ghoul paint, the white face paint with the black markings, standing out wearing spikes and studs and black and leather, and they're in the middle of this Norwegian forest and they're taking their photo shoot. Same concept, but different theatrics. But the songs are all very much rooted in the love for Lucifer and seeing his glory and praising him for freeing the human race. And I'm not going to get into the theology side behind it, but as someone who was very much raised in a Christian upbringing, I mean, my first name is Christian, for fuck's sake, it's definitely a hard pill to swallow. Not necessarily because I have issues with Satan or anything. I don't believe in that stuff any longer. But it's kind of like listening to Christian music, where it's like, you're really jazzed about this person that you worship, and I don't believe that they exist. And it's kind of cringy in a way. But unlike Christian music, the cringe with this actually goes away because the music backing it is very solid. Which then brought up a discussion piece of, what if Christian music was just written better? Would it gain more traction? Because it always seemed to me that they write the lyrics first and then try to write the music afterward to fit the piece. And it just comes off as very ham-fisted and dopey and uninteresting. Like, I know the kind of people who listen to Christian music, and it almost seems like they have to, just because of what it is, rather than the fact that they enjoy it themselves. And so when you have a band like Ghost, who's very gung-ho on the devil and actually writes solid music to back it, it's like, all right, well, in this case where, Rachel, who still is believing in God, has a harder time listening to the music just because of the message behind it, but is also conflicted, or at least that's what she tells me, because, yeah, it's really good music. It's like, this is a pretty banging song, but I hate the message that's behind it, so I'm super conflicted, and I feel guilty about listening to it because it feels like I'm, kind of playing for the other team. I'm betraying my own. And so it was interesting. And it makes me wonder, if there's other music akin to it, where is there a really banging Buddhist metal band out there that I'm not aware of, or Islamic, or even Jewish? Like, if you have such a love for, this deity that you worship, wouldn't you want to make the best possible fucking music to promote their message? And maybe not necessarily recruit, but like, all right, I don't agree with these guys, but they make a pretty bitchin' album. I can respect that. And that's kind of where it falls with me to Ghost, where, yeah, some of the earlier songs and albums are very heavy and hard, and that stereotypical death metal, like, Satan is great, we love him so much, he's the best. And it leads into more nuanced and, I would argue, beautiful pieces, where you also have hymnal sounding pieces like He Is, where unless you're paying attention to the lyrics, you're pretty sure he's just singing about God, but it's actually the devil. And it's funny because some of those songs that I was initially turned off to just because of the heavy Satan pandering, I guess, they won me over because they were some of the better songs on the albums themselves. But again, as Ghost progressed through its discography to where they are currently, I see not necessarily, like, there's still, songs were praising Satan in the latest album, but they're noticeably fewer and not as overt in the lyrics. And that's something that they've commented on in the past, where, Ghost is seeing more mainstream acceptance because in America, Europe, they don't really give a shit. It is what it is. You worship what you worship. Nobody cares. But in America, we're all gung-ho for Jesus. So they've seen resistance, as would be expected. But they had been accused that, oh, you guys are becoming more mainstream. You're kind of shying away from that. That's why you're doing better in America. And they're saying, no, we're not played on mainstream media, radio. We've only had the one live TV appearance, and that was because it was a Halloween show of the Colbert Show. And our album artwork's been rejected. They still see a lot of pushback. And when they were recording, what was it? Their second or their third album in Nashville, they couldn't find a local choir to do backing vocals because of the lyrics, and had to record that part separate in Hollywood. So it's very interesting. And I understand if you have your beliefs, you hold firm to them, you do what you feel is right, but it's just fascinating to me to see how people will let such decisions impact the rest of their life. And I'm not saying they should give up their morals or anything, just I'm intrigued by it. So I was, I guess, pleasantly surprised at the turn that I saw with Ghost. I wasn't expecting to like them in any sense of the word, but motherfuckers make great music, so I'm in. And it even got me to the point of like, all right, I want to get back into playing, my bass. And so I downloaded an app that's like, oh yeah, here's all the sheet music, and here it'll actually play it like Rock Band, where it scrolls through as the music plays, and you can kind of see the notes that you have to hit. Like, all right, it's definitely intermediate level stuff as far as the bass is concerned, but it's still challenging enough to me, someone who plays only once every 6 months. I'm in. I will try and learn this music because I enjoy it that much. And then to the point of like, all right, I found out about this band less than a month ago, and I am wholeheartedly in to what they're doing. I love it so much. Let's buy tickets to a show. To the point of like, I'm going to request days off from work so we can travel 2 or 3 hours to where the nearest show is in October and go see them. Like, and I feel that's where their strong suit is in those theatrics, in the performance itself, and going to see the live show. Because I've watched a lot of them on YouTube, and it's like, oh, I really want to be a part of that. Because the last concert we went to, I keep saying they're Imagine Dragons. I know it's not Imagine Dragons. It was like 3 separate bands, one right after the other. As you know, you have a typical lineup. But again, all street clothes, no theatrics to it, no real performance, and it seemed like they were all coked out of their heads. Whereas Ghost, from everything I've seen, is very orchestrated, very timed out, very methodical. And it's like a classic rock show. Like, you know, when I went to go see Kiss, or even Billy Idol, for fuck's sake, who changes his shirt 50 times, but there's a sense of avant-garde, where there's a performance going on that you're there to enjoy and experience. So I'm very, very much looking forward to that, and that should be a good episode to listen to. But I'm torn at that point. Like, do I record it like some asshole with my phone, or do I just sit back and I enjoy the experience? And I think I'm leaning towards just sitting back and enjoying the experience, because traditionally I don't see bands more than once, as much as I get into them. So I got to make the most of it while I'm there. But that's going to wrap it up. If you have your own thoughts, concerns, criticisms, complaints, critiques, comments, or otherwise just want to shoot the shit about how amazing Ghost is, drop an email to theunwashedasses@gmail.com. Again, theunwashedasses@gmail.com. And of course, don't forget we have a store. I'm right now rocking the 0 and 9 circle shirt. Loving it to pieces. Yesterday we did the Friday Night Smite. I realize I'm becoming a whore for my own brand as I wear my t-shirts and put my stickers on everything. And I want you to as well. Go out there, proclaim your love for me and the work that I do by wearing by branding yourselves with me, the mark of 0. Yeah, just please listen to the show, tell a friend, let them know they can get it wherever they get podcasts. And that's going to wrap it up. We will talk to you next week here shortly. In the meantime, blood for the blood god.